Excellent. All right. Well, greetings, everybody. Greetings, Albany voters. My name is Jeremiah Garrett-Pinguelo. I've lived in Albany for over 30 years. I graduated from Albany High School in 2001. Afterwards, I attended Cal State University, Long Beach, where I studied my passion of civil engineering. Shortly after graduating, I began my career with the International Longshore Warehousemen's Union, Local 75 at the Port of Oakland in San Francisco. Still currently working there today. I am the North Coast District Council rep for my union, Safety Committee, and on the executive board. During the 2020 elections, I was nominated and appointed by the Albany Unified School District Board of Education, serving the community on an advisory body to City Council, named the Social and Economic Justice Commission. There I have not missed one meeting. I have a perfect attendance, and I have served on many subcommittees. The ones I'm currently serving on are housing, youth leadership, and mental health. I've spent many years volunteering at the Gilchak Farm in the UC Village. There, I was the first community outreach organizer. I used to invite City Council to come enjoy the farm. Some of my main goals, first of all, is to listen to the public and their public comment on what their needs are. And also, I'd like to connect Albany with free food and other critical resources. I'd also like to see more youth and senior programs within Albany. If you want to meet me in person, I'm very approachable, and I'm always on Solano and Talbot every Thursday from 2 p.m. to 5 p.m., passing out free food to the community members, including those who are unhoused. Past 5 to 10 years of my life, I've also attended pretty much every public meeting on the public calendar Albany has.
Time's up.
So I'm very rounded about everything going in Albany.
Thank you, Jeremiah.
You're welcome.
Next up, we have City Council candidate Nick Pilch. Whenever you're ready.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, good evening. I'm Nick Pilch. I'm running for Albany City Council, and I'm running with my Albany Forward campaign mates, Robin López and John Miki. I had the privilege of serving as your council member from 2014 to 2020, finishing my second term as your mayor and leading the city through the onset of COVID. Due to Albany's term limits, I had to step off for 2 years, but I now ask that you have me back again. I led the effort to bring the soda tax to Albany, creating funding for many programs for health and youth, including funding school crossing guards. I successfully brought forward and supported a number of other measures that have sustained and increased city's funding for important programs and services, such as public safety services, park maintenance, sidewalk repair, and climate action programs. I've served on the city commissions for 11 years, almost 11 years, and I also currently serve on the Alameda County Pedestrian and Bicycle Advisory Commission as well. I founded or helped start or held leadership positions in a number of community groups and nonprofits. I'm currently a Sierra Club elected leader and Sierra Club outings leader as well. Through my work in the community, on commissions, and on council, I have a proven record of crafting and funding positive change, including environmental, safety, and housing initiatives. I instigated the process of leading to Albany's first civilian police oversight body. I'm chair of the Planning and Zoning Commission currently, and I'm continuing the work that I started on the council. I am running to continue the work of this council in climate action, safe and equitable streets for all, economic and social justice, and housing production. I'm endorsed by Mayor Preston Jordan, Vice Mayor Aaron Tiedemann, and School Board President Sarah Hinckley, and School Board Vice President Bonnie Davidson. Please vote Pilch, Miki, and López as your number 1, 2, and 3 on your ballot to move albanyforward.org. Thank you.
Thank you, Nick. Next up, we have John Miki. Begin whenever you're ready, John.
Thank you, Spencer. Good evening. I'm John Miki, and I'm running the City Council, as Nick mentioned, with Robin and Nick, under the banner of Albany Forward. I moved to Albany in 2005 to attend UC Berkeley, And I was really fortunate to live in the University Village for some time. The experience of living at the University Village was so instrumental in me and my family getting to understand what is so special about Albany and what a wonderful place it is. When I graduated, I was fortunate enough with my young family to make a home here. And our kids were able to attend the Albany schools and really loved the ability to walk or bike to school. We live across from Marin Elementary School, so our kids often walk straight across the street. They walked and biked to Albany Middle School and walked and biked to Albany High School. In 2010, I put my work experience to serve Albany on the Traffic and Safety Commission. In that time that I worked there with my fellow commissioners, we passed Albany's first active transportation plan. I brought to the commission my work experience in both subject knowledge and in helping to build consensus around issues. I also really worked hard to be able to take a look at the bigger picture and take a step back when confronting with these pressing issues. I really worked hard to balance the aspirational dreams of the community with the short-term implementation changes that could actualize those things that we look to in the future. But above all, I worked to truly listen to the concerns of the residents of Albany and to my fellow commissioners. I was recently appointed to Climate Action Committee, where I will work to continue moving Albany forward in a more sustainable and resilient way. I run for City Council to bring voices to the table to address options on how people move about our town in a safe manner and to address housing production.
Thank you very
John.
much.
Next up, Robin López for City Council.
Hello, everyone. My name is Robin D. Lopez, and I'm running for Albany City Council with the Albany Forward slate alongside John and Nick. I navigate this world as a scientist and ecologist, having worked for 10 years with the U.S. Department of Energy at the Lawrence Berkeley National Lab, and having leveraged my presence and identity as a person of color in these spaces to catalyze change. I hope to bring a new era of young leadership into Albany, and that we can move forward, we can help move our city forward intentionally and responsibly. A leadership style that is reflective of both my experiences and the needs of this community. I'm a first-generation scholar, having completed my undergraduate degree in civil engineering at San Francisco State University, my master's degree in water resources at San Jose State University, and now completing my PhD as a PhD candidate at UC Berkeley in environmental science, policy, and management. I have recently moved into the UC Village to continue my PhD pursuits at UC Berkeley, having been raised in our neighboring city of Richmond, California. Since then, my family and I have decided to put our root down here, and I look forward to raising my growing family here. I'm a father of a 12-year-old at Albany Middle School, and I'm expecting a newborn in a couple of weeks. Before becoming an active member of this community, I've led mental health programming in Richmond in conjunction with the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, and have previously received the White House Presidential Volunteer Service Award under the Barack Obama administration. Recently, I've been given the chance to serve the city directly as a member of the Albany Social and Economic Justice Commission. As a member of our city council, I hope to continue my work empowering the people and advocating for equity-focused policy. I am committed to creating youth opportunities and enhancing access to basic needs and mental health resources, while developing equitable and sustainable new infrastructure and housing. I'm here to move Albany forward and to catalyze that change, and come forth endorsed by Mayor Jordan, Vice Mayor Tederman, and School Board President Hinckley. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Robin. That concludes the opening statements we have available for this particular forum. We're going to move on to a Q&A section next. As we discussed at the start of this meeting, what we're going to do is we're going to keep the same order, but begin at one person down in the list. So that means for this first question, the first candidate to answer will be Nick Pilch. The second candidate will be John Miki, and so on. With that, I'm going to ask. Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to jump in real quick, and if people were wondering about Jennifer Hansen-Romero, who's also on the ballot in November, she conveyed to us today that she's not available. So, we do have everyone you've heard from already, or the people we're going to hear the questions answered from.
All right. Thank you very much, Brian, for that clarification. And a final note, it's going to be 1 minute available for each candidate's response to each question. So with that, the first question for our candidates is, what is your vision for how Albany will change after your time on council? And the floor is Nick's when you're ready.
If I run and win and serve, what will happen afterwards? Is that the question?
Yes, the operative word there is after.
Okay. Well, I would hope that Albany would be improved by my serving on the council. But perhaps you want to know the details in which ways. I'm very much focused on livable communities. We've already have a great community here in our small city. I was down on Solano Avenue today, and that really is a quintessential view of what is good community can be, with people walking and chatting and people knowing each other. And I want that throughout Albany through as much as possible. I'd like to see that happening on San Pablo Avenue too, once we get some more housing built. So I'll see some more dense housing built on Albany, on San Pablo Ave, and much more community, and see us having tackled environmental issues. And geez, my time is up. Thank you.
Thank you.
We're going to move on to our next candidate, Robin López.
Yes, so if I were to be elected and have that privilege and honor, my vision for how Albany would change after I'm elected, or after I've served my time, I should say, is that I've done my job well enough to the point where people do not realize that I am no longer present, that I passed on the baton in a intentional manner for the folks after me to carry on that work. In terms of specific things that I would hope to see that are carried on, similar to what Nick had just alluded to, would love to see more housing in our community. But from me particularly, and from my experiences, I would love to see more folks from the UC Village involved in our local governance and the decision-making process. As well, I'd love to see more youth civically engaged in our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Robin. We're going to move on to our final candidate. Excuse me. I believe I skipped John Miki. Forgive me, John. I apologize. We're going to maintain that original order sequence, and we're going to hopefully forgive Spencer for this oversight. So, John, you're going to go next, and then we're going to move on to Jeremiah.
I forgive you, Spencer. It's 4:30 in the morning. I hear where you lost. So, I really appreciate this question. I think it's really important for community members and council members to really think about long-term, where's the future of Albany, and where would we want it to be? If I'm if I am chosen and to be on city council, my hope would be at the end of my 2 terms would be that I leave Albany really set up in a place where we're moving towards a more sustainable and resilient community. It is an incredible community that has so much to offer everyone. My hope is that you can walk down streets and there are street trees, that it's safe for everyone to walk, to drive. Much like Robin, I think housing is something that's very important to me, and I'd love to be able to offer the ability for more University Village residents who graduate to remain in Albany and continue to contribute to our really wonderful community. And so those are things that I would love to see at the end of my term.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
And now to our final candidate, Jeremiah Garrett-Pinguelo.
Good evening, everybody. So a few things that I'd like to see change in Albany. Right now, there's no food bank in Albany. That'd be one of the first things I would do, is bring a food bank to Albany. Also, I would make a lot more community gardens. There's not many community gardens in Albany, maybe one in Memorial Park. It's kind of small though. I wish to see a lot more city jobs. That way, people in Albany can live and work in Albany. With that, raising the Albany living wage. Right now, it's around $15 an hour, $16 an hour. It's way too low. Can't even work at living wage and still live in Albany. I would like to see the city apply for more grants and more houseless programs. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. We're going to move on to our second question. And that question for candidates is, one of our most pressing issues in Albany is housing. How do you envision the city increasing its housing stock to meet its regional quota? We're going to start this time with John Miki and continue with Robin López. John, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Spencer. Albany recently passed the plan, San Pablo specific plan. And I think that's a huge opportunity for Albany to be able to increase the opportunities for people to continue to live in Albany, to move into Albany, and so I think that is a key factor. In my professional work, I've had the experience of working in a lot of communities in California where we've explored this exact question. How do you allow the community to grow while still maintaining the wonderful character that Albany has? One of the things that my firm specializes in a lot is something called the missing middle housing. These are duplexes, triplexes, fourplexes. These are buildings that fit into neighborhoods. It's something that we as Albany have just north of the post office that we have today. And it's something that state law already is leaning towards in SB 9, where single family lots now can have a minimum of 2 units and up to 4 units. So I think bringing this expertise that I have and experience to Albany to help us reach our goals of housing.
Thank you very much. Our next candidate to answer that question is Robin López.
Yes, so I do envision the city increasing its housing stock to meet its regional quota by having responsible elected officials at the local governance level to see that these plans go through, specifically the housing element plan. We have right now an opportunity to put just north of 1,100 units in our city with this plan alone, of which nearly 500 of those units would be for affordable folks, or affordable housing units for folks that meet that need. But again, it's not that doesn't just come down on the elected officials to make those decisions. This also requires us to interface directly with entities like UC Berkeley, who do have the capacity to do so in spaces like the UC Village. So when it comes to meeting that quota, it's a lot of capacity building and collaboration.
Thank you very much.
Robin. And finally, our last candidate, Jeremiah Garrett-Pinguelo. Excuse me, second to last, Jeremiah Garrett-Pinguelo.
So about housing, right? What, next 5 years, Albany has to have 8,000 more units or something like that. So it'll all work out. The biggest problem is homelessness is not going away. And Albany has no homeless shelter. So the solution for a homeless shelter is to put that on Cleveland Avenue, on the other side of the freeway, right next to Public Works office, where Albany still used to be. It's up for lease right now. Having a homeless shelter or house a shelter on San Pablo or Solano is just too much in the middle of everything. But I would like to see a homeless shelter. Also, I'd like to see some sort of rent control for our housing, because Albany's rentals is way too high. I'd like to see more housing, more fair housing, and also tenant and landlord mediation. That'd be great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jeremiah. And our last candidate, Nick Pilch.
Thank you. Housing is a passion of mine, and I believe we can, as I believe John said, increase the housing in Albany and keep its character. And I've been directly involved in a couple of things. The San Pablo Avenue specific plan was mentioned, and I pushed that for years until staff took it up, and now that's completed. And the housing element, as is mentioned, we've passed that draft by the council, and now that's going to the state for approval. And in the housing element, it talks about how so San Pablo Avenue is one place where we can put housing, but the housing element also talks about sites along Solano Ave and talks about the backside of Albany Hill where we could put some dense housing, and sites near the El Cerrito Plaza, which would be appropriate. But it also talks about putting duplexes throughout the city, allowing duplexes in single family zones, because the state says we have to make sure we put the housing everywhere, not just concentrated in some of the least desirable sites. So all of that is how we're going
Thank
to meet
you.
our housing needs.
Thank you, Nick.
Thank you very much to our candidates. We're going to move on to our next question, which is, city council members have to manage and direct city staff. Could you discuss your approach to management and setting strategic priorities? Specifically, how do you deal with issues that are not moving as fast as you might want? Our first candidate to answer that question is John Miki. We'll continue with Robin López. Thank you. John, the floor is yours.
I thought,
I think it's Robin's turn to go first.
yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much. Robin, the floor is yours, and we'll continue with Jeremiah.
Yeah, so when it concerns working with city staff, again, this is where my comment earlier about capacity building and collaboration is critical and crucial. Thankfully, in my short experience so far and from institutional knowledge, I've been made very much aware that progress is definitely possible with city staff. However, things do happen, and those are the nuances of being in local governance. And if issues were to arise, I think this is where it's very important for leaders to reflect their values of having patience and understanding perspective of both city staff and their constituents. And so I'd approach it from that angle and trying to understand what is on city staff's mind and where we can come to resolve this collectively as a city council, not just my own personal decision.
Thank you, Robin.
Sorry, I dropped off there.
That's all right. Next, we're going to move on to Jeremiah. Jeremiah, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Well, first of all, the questions, do I have to? No. We get to work with city staff. We don't have to. And managing city staff really isn't the city's council's job. That's what we have a city manager for. That's what we pay $250,000 a year for a city manager. So that's where that comes from, to direct city staff and how to manage city staff. And if there's issues that arise, when city staff has these problems, they can't get the work done, well, that's where creating more city jobs comes in, like I said before. So we need to create more city staff jobs. That way there's more people for the amount of work. You know that saying, many hands make light work, right? So those are some of my solutions. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeremiah. We're going to move on to our next candidate, Nick Pilch.
Thank you for the question. This is indeed a important part of our work, and I now have 6 years of elected experience and over 11 years of appointed experience working with staff, and I know it can be very difficult. I appreciate Robin's point of view of listening to staff, but we do hire the city manager, and the city manager does report to council, and it is our job to make sure the city manager is doing a good job, and then the city manager manages everyone under her. It's important to keep good relationships with the staff. At the same time, one of the things that I did when I was on council was making sure the staff knew that both us electeds and the staff report to the people, and our job is to serve the people. And it's not always an easy job, and it's not always fun, but at the end of the day, that's both our jobs.
Thank you very much. We're going to move on to our next candidate, John Miki.
Thank you, Spencer. When I had the opportunity to be on traffic and safety, we had a great working relationship with staff, and we understood the limitations of the time that they had, and we understood where harvesting resources or really partnering with others to find ways to supplement their efforts and supplement the desires of what traffic and safety is looking towards. That was hugely important. We have staff members that are currently on staff that were brought in through the Civic Spark program, right? Opportunities for us to partner and bring additional resources to the community is one of the things that I would be looking at as a council member to really support the wonderful staff we have and recognize that they only have so many hours in a day, and that we need to find partners that'll help us get all the things that we want completed in this community.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Our next question for candidates is the following. Albany recently established a police oversight commission, which, if elected, you will have a chance to make inaugural appointments on. What are your goals for this commission, as well as police reform in Albany on a larger scale? We're going to start here with Jeremiah and move to Nick second. Jeremiah, the floor is yours.
Okay, well, first of all, that's a tough cookie, right? So we need to listen to both sides. A lot of people want to defund the police, which is a point of view, but you got the other hand where a lot of people want the police because they are public safety. Now, a lot of it's institutional, and we need to create a bigger budget in a sense to be able to have with that police commission, to have some more human resources, some hiring protocols. I know AB 21's coming up, so that's a big choice we got to figure out. And so we got to hear both sides of the story. We got to listen to the police and we got to listen to the people. So it's going to be a tough balance. So it's going to be a tough commission. But most important, we need to listen to public comment, because public comment is the people. And that's what we're here to serve, is the people. So we need to listen to public comment. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jeremiah. Next is Nick Pilch.
Thank you very much. As I mentioned before, I started the process when I was mayor that led to the formation of the police oversight body, and I'm thrilled. I'd be thrilled to appoint on that body. I think what the public wants most is transparency. We want to know the data. A lot of the data is very difficult to get or impossible to get, and so surfacing as much data as possible is really important. How many complaints have there been? What is the nature of those complaints? Any and all data about how the police are acting in our city. When I was mayor, I also held a mayor's town hall to listen to the community, and the community said that yes, they've had some problems with the police, especially the people of color in this community. So we need to get to the bottom of that. Yes, we need to listen to all sides, but we need to make sure that that process is transparent as possible and people have all the data and the facts in front of them. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nick. Our next candidate to answer that question is John Miki.
I think if elected, I would be looking really to make sure that the commission is understanding what it is that we're asking our police officers to do, and are they necessarily always the best to be dealing with situations in our community. While on traffic and safety, I got an opportunity to ride along with police officers, and it was an incredible experience to hear and understand their perspective. My experiences with the Albany Police Department has always been supportive for me and my family through different crises. And so I support the police, but I also understand that we ask them to put their lives in a situation that maybe sometimes they're not the ones that should be the first to be handling mental health issues, for instance. But again, I have all the respect for the police department and the service they provide us as a community.
Thank you, John. We're going to move now to our final candidate to answer that question, Robin López.
Yes, thank you. And I really appreciate that this question is set for myself and fellow candidates. I personally would be excited to be able to nominate someone to this to the commission, partly because this is an opportunity to have a voice at the table that is a proper representation, but can also lead with accountability. And I think I would likely mirror something that Nick had done in the past and trying to be consistent with hosting open forum for the community, and ideally seeing if this commission could be a way to facilitate that, because part of the commission's goal is to have better community engagement. And with that said, I'm all for accountability and transparency. Every department's different, but at the same time, no department is perfect. And there's always work to be done. And I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you. Rob.
Thank you, Robin. That completes our candidate responses for that particular question. We're going to move on to our next. The next question is, climate change is one of the most pressing issues facing our world, and transportation accounts for approximately half of Albany's greenhouse gas emissions. As a city council member, what measures related to transportation and otherwise will you support to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and stem the tide of climate change? First to answer that question is Nick Pilch.
Okay, thank you for the question. It's quite a lot to say in a minute. I'll give it a shot. Yes, the transportation is a big factor. Also, housing, energy, building energy. I think we can do more in that area. The city's already been doing a great thing with having rebates for appliances, but maybe we could have some more innovative programs like installing insulation and making sure that our houses are using as little energy as possible, our buildings are using as little energy as possible. As far as the transportation goes, yeah, we need to continue the transition to both electric vehicles and to get people out of single person vehicles, single person motor vehicles, and make sure that everyone has equitable transportation, and the people who are walking and biking and others are feel as safe as everyone else on the streets.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nick. The next candidate to answer that question is John Miki.
Yeah, climate change is such an important thing. And, as you mentioned, transportation is such an important part to solving that. I think we in Albany have done a great job with the active transportation plan of starting the ball rolling on making it safer to give people the option of not choosing a car. I am continually encouraged by seeing the number of parents I see ride around in Albany, taking their kids to school on the back of a bicycle, that they're choosing to take their kids that way instead of a car. I think we can do more to encourage electrical vehicles. On Solano Avenue, having charging stations, that's definitely something that would help people make the choice if they choose to drive an electric vehicle. Other elements like continuing to push for solar panels on houses and on commercial buildings, working towards doing like Berkeley has done, electrifying our stove, right? Removing, not allowing new installations of gas.
Time's up, Stein. Thank you.
John, we're going to move on to our next candidate, Robin López.
Things she had said, but far from the only one, and caused her own colleagues in
So when it concerns climate change and options that we could pursue, I think it's very important to stress that we are actively in a climate crisis. And this is not something that has just become about in the last decade or last 2 decades. That the climate crisis is something that has been impacting many of our communities, particularly the most vulnerable and most minoritized community members. And so if I were elected as a city council member, some of the measures I would take is simply to what I had mentioned in my candidate ballot statement, responsible and sensible housing, similar to what John and Nick has shared, values that we share along those lines of energy efficient homes, but I think I'd also push the boundaries a bit further and interface directly with Alameda County leadership, similar to what we've accomplished in Contra Costa County, and provide rebate program for e-bikes or other cleaner energy products, and find ways to make this more of a viable option for community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Robin. We're going to move on to our next candidate, Jeremiah Garrett-Pinguelo.
Well, the city council, we've created what's called the Climate Action Committee. And the Climate Action Committee, it's their job to advise city council on what to do. And I would just love to approve whatever they have to come along. I mean, obviously ride share, biking and walking would be great, but I think the city needs to lead by example. You know, you've heard the saying, if you build it, they will come. Well, the city needs to take some more priorities in installing more electric vehicle charging stations at all the city properties. That's at Ocean View Park, Memorial Park, the City Hall. I don't see one charger for electric cars at any of these facilities. So we need to lead by example and show the public that the city's taking an investment to have more electric car charging stations. And of course, get them on San Pablo and Solano as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We're going to move on now from you've been hearing questions that were presented by the executive board, and we're going to move on now to the Q&A questions that you have all been submitting to me directly through the chat. We're not going to have time to get to all of them, and if your question was not selected, please do continue to pose questions for our next forum with the Albany school board candidates, and let me know when you send your message that your question in the first forum wasn't asked so I can prioritize you. With that caveat, the question from our audience is, given the city's pension obligations, are you confident of the long-term financial health of the city? And more broadly, what skills will you bring to providing oversight of city budgeting and spending? Our first candidate to answer that question is John Miki.
Thank you, Spencer. You know, I think, again, going back to the statement I made earlier, you know, I can't speak to the pension situation today in Albany, but what I can say is looking to find partners that help us do the work that we need to do as a community to keep this community such a thriving place that is. It's important to find partners. It's important to find ways of offsetting costs. You know, I think one of the things that I try to do at my job is very early on is to explore, we call it throwing spaghetti against the wall, right? Just get any crazy idea out there, understand what those options are, what does the world of possibilities allow, and then work from there to find and craft solutions that maybe haven't really been discussed or looked at enough in the past.
John.
Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to move on to our next candidate. That's Robin López.
Yeah, so when it concerns city finances, specifically around city's pension obligations, I will admit that's not something I'm as well versed as I can be and capable of being at this moment. And I'm willing to learn, and I'm willing to soak up that knowledge from the folks who do have that expertise, particularly those who are on our fire and pension board, to have a better sense of what's going on in terms of the broader scope of what's going on with the city budget. Again, that's where I fall back on the expertise of those who do have the familiarity with finances and city financial obligations. Similar as I would expect someone to hopefully listen to me and hear me out from my respective expertise in science and ecology, I would give that same due diligence to those who have that expertise in finances.
Thank you.
Robin. We're going to continue on to our next candidate, Jeremiah Garrett-Pinguelo.
Well, this is something I'm well versed in because I attend pretty much every single city calendar meeting. And we have the fire, police, pension meeting. It's, I think, every 3 months, but it'd be nice if it was every month. That way there was more public comment. I'm usually the only public comment and public attendee. Well, a couple things for that is we need to invest in a little bit more than just the stocks and bonds that are offered. Maybe create some sort of CD account, some sort of long-term. And also the pensions, maybe they could raise the union dues, so that way a little bit more goes in their pension. Another thing is, it'd be nice if they match dollar for dollar. So whatever the fire department, police, or city staff puts in their pension untaxed, it could be matched dollar per dollar. That way they have more for the retirement when they withdraw that later on after retirement. So yeah, those are some good meetings to attend. The pension meetings for sure. We should have them a little bit more often and a little bit
Time's
more
up.
on it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And forgive me, I lost track. Nick, have you answered this question?
No, I have not. Thank you. Yeah.
You have not. Please go ahead. Thank you, Nick.
Thanks very much. Yes, I'm very proud that when I was on the city council, we started the financial advisory committee, so that will both augment the staff and in the finance department, and also allow better transparency to the public about the finances of the city. So I think that, yeah, it is pension liability is a problem. We've had numerous presentations when I was on the council about this, and the expenses over the next number of years just go up and up. And so funding sources are extremely important, and I've always been focused on that. We're a city with a very small business tax base, so we have to look at every and all opportunities for funding sources. And so I've made sure that we bring back every tax measure for renewal, and that we look for new tax measures like the soda tax. And one of the things I'd like to do is see us make our real estate transfer tax progressive. We passed a real estate transfer tax, but we did not make it progressive. So we can tax the higher transfer fees more and bring even more dollars to the city.
Time's up. Thank you.
Thank you, Nick. Looking at the clock, we're going to move on to closing statements so that we can make sure that our Albany School Board candidates have a chance to share their candidacy with us. With that, every candidate has 1 minute to give their closing statement, and we're going to start with Robin López.
I would first like to thank everyone in attendance this evening, and again, highlight that I am here to bring in that new young leadership for the city, and a new form of dynamic representation that I feel that our local governance is lacking. I look forward to leading and ushering Albany into the place that it can be and that it's capable of being, and being reflective of the community's needs and goals. With that said, I am immensely excited for the opportunities forward, to represent Albany in the best light possible and to move Albany forward with John and Nick. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Robin. Next, Jeremiah Garrett-Pinguelo.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm looking forward to being on the city council. You know, this is a 4-year term, and I'm in it for the long haul. Sometimes these meetings go well after midnight, and I'm usually the only public comment, only the public attendee hanging on till the end, you know, and I'm just alert at those hours. You know, I'm sober. I think we need sober leadership. I think that's very important. I have a flexible career to where I get to choose my own hours, so I can donate all my time to city council, 100% of my time. I really have no personal commitments. My wife passed away in 2020 from COVID. So I'm basically married to the community. I'm in love with the community, and I wish to donate all my time to help the community on city council. Thank you very much. Please vote for Jeremiah. First choice.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jeremiah. We're going to move on to our next candidate, Nick Pilch.
Okay, thank you very much. Well, first, thank you very much for the opportunity, and thank you for the questions. I think cities need to adapt to changing times. We're lucky to live in a unique, wonderful 1.25 square mile city, which is rich in community and people who care about it. And we need to do our part to address climate change and to welcome all those who want to live in our city. As mentioned before, I championed the San Pablo specific plan for years, and that'll bring needed housing to our community and needed vitality with new residents. And when I was on the council, We also approved the Cleveland Avenue Affordable Housing project, which is 62 units, all affordable with supportive services. And we also dedicated Pierce Street, Peggy Thompson Pierce Street Park, which is nearby and which will serve this housing. These are all examples of how we can evolve our city and welcome all who want to live here and make our city strong and still preserve the character of our city. So thank you for your time. Vote me number 1 and my Albany Forward candidates number 2 and 3, albanyforward.org. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nick. And our last candidate to give a closing statement, Miki.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk with you all tonight. I really, truly appreciate this. I'd like to close by saying that I'm really proud to be campaigning with Robin and Nick. You know, I have known Nick in passing over the 15, 16 years that I've been part of this community, and very recently got to meet and get to know Robin, and I'm really excited about both of them. We each came to this decision to run on our own. We each stand before you as independent thinkers with our diverse experiences and backgrounds, but we share common core values. And I look forward to the opportunity to make Albany a more inclusive place that's prepared for the future. I would be honored to get your endorsement and continue to serve Albany. Please consider voting 1, 2, and 3 for the Albany Forward candidates.
Thank you.
Thank you, John. That concludes our forum for Albany City Council candidates endorsement. Thank you all for joining us. We appreciate your time and your advocacy and your civic engagement. Looking at the clock and making sure that we want to give our school board candidates the forum that to give them the forum appropriate for the importance of their position, we're going to move on to that section of the program. So as a reminder for everyone here on our call, the format is the following. There's a 2-minute opening statement. Each candidate then gets 1 minute to respond to each question. We're going to maintain the order in which people provide their opening statements and answer questions. We're simply going to progress each question to the next person and continue cycle through. With us today are the following candidates: Ron Rosenbaum, Sadia Khan, and I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, officers, but I believe that exhausts the number of the school board candidates we have here. Is that correct? Someone correct me.
Yes, I'm the club officer who was coordinating all that. And so we have another person who's running is Becky Hopwood. I believe that's right. And she told us a while back that she was unavailable tonight. So, but she is running, and so she should be on the ballot. And then some of you who might have come early heard a number of us discussing Lucy. I forget her last name. Is it Baird? She told us today that she's not running, but the deadline may have passed. And so in the discussion, it sounds like it's complicated as to whether or not she actually will be on the ballot in November, but it's quite possible she will be on the ballot in November, which would be a 4th candidate. So, so we definitely need to hear from everyone we can. And the 2 folks we have here today who are left, we are grateful to be able to hear from them.
Thank you, Brian. And you did get everybody's name right.
Okay.
Terrific. Thank you very much, Brian. With that, we're going to begin with opening statements, starting with Ron Rosenbaum. Ron, the floor is yours. Ron, you're muted, I'm afraid.
Myself. Oh, here we go. Okay. Ready?
Yes.
My computer is screwing up, but I don't know why. Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Great. Well, I don't have much time, so I'm going to have to read my statement and then, or tell you my statement, and then I've got to go. As some of you know, I've been a long time enthusiastic person dedicated to education of our students. I'm a longtime member of the Albany community and a longtime public educator. I've been a public school classroom teacher, a counselor at the middle and high school levels, and a high school administrator, including several years as the principal of Albany High School. And I was an acting principal at Albany High School when there was a very critical period in 2007, very interesting incident that they needed somebody to replace the principal, and I was appointed. I've been a member of the Albany Unified School District Board of Education for 9.5 years and served as the president of the board for 3 of those years. I believe I bring outstanding understanding of public education and of the Albany community to the board, with my goals of ensuring and guaranteeing that all students have an opportunity to achieve at the highest level and develop critical thinking skills in a safe, inclusive, and totally equitable school environment. I believe the values that I bring are my experience, my integrity, my ethics, and my honesty. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ron. We're going to move on to our second candidate, Sadia Khan.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for having me. My name is Sadia Khan. I moved to Albany in 2018 as a student at UC Berkeley, pursuing my undergraduate degree as a single mom and somebody who's been very active with my son's school. I'm running to help better our Albany school district, make sure that our parents, teachers, and children feel supported, and just, engaging our community in ways that meet their needs and revolve around their needs. I've spent the past 7 years working in education advocacy between food and housing security, Title IX, mental health services, and so much more. My advocacy isn't just at the local level, but also at the statewide and federal level. And I hope to bring those experiences to the school board. And beyond that, I am definitely a proud PTA mom, never expected to be part of the PTA, but it is something that has brought so much joy to my life and to my son's life. And that's given me the opportunity to learn more about our schools in ways that I never anticipated before becoming a parent. And it's given me an opportunity to also work with some of my son's teachers. And those are experiences that are valuable and need to be presented at our Albany School Board. And I'd love to be able to bring those voices to the table. Beyond that, University Village is a community that is often left out. Having worked within, UC Village and all of the families that are here, I want to be able to make sure that those voices are also being brought to the table when policies are being discussed that impact us directly. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sadia. We're going to continue on now with questions. As a reminder, each candidate will get 1 minute to answer questions. We're going to start with the following. How do you think the school district and the school board can best create an inclusive and welcoming environment for all students? First to answer that question will be Sadia Khan.
Thank you for that. I think part of that, depends on our ability to actually support our teachers and make sure they have the right tools needed to be able to do their jobs in a way where they are not overburdened. And also it's about making sure that we're actually reaching out to, our parents and making sure that we're able to hear their voices when discussing policies that directly impact their children. And beyond that, it's also a matter of making sure that our students are actually feeling represented in who is teaching them, who is around them, who they're learning from. It's also about making sure that they have access to mental health services, to food and housing security, because all of those things impact their ability to actually focus and to be able to participate in school actively. So, these are issues that are interconnected beyond just what happens at the school sites. And it's important to take all of those things into consideration when, creating policies that impact our children.
Thank you.
Very much. I believe we still have Ron.
Yes, I'll chime in. I believe that he needed to leave. Brian might be able to say more.
Well, it was news to me that he needed to leave. He didn't communicate that he had a another engagement, but he did, right before his opening statement, he seemed to say that he did need to leave. So, so then we should direct our questions to the remaining candidate and give her the 1 minute for each response so we can become educated as to her positions on these things. And if there are 4 people on the ballot in November, that will help us make decisions.
All right, here we go. Flash round.
Sounds good.
Sadia in the hot seat. All right, Sadia, our next question for you is Albany schools, like those across the country, struggled during the pandemic. What do you think AUSD has done well with regards to COVID response, and where could it improve going forward?
Absolutely. I think one of the most difficult things to do was, deciding whether or not we needed to go back in person or not. As a parent, while I was extremely cautious to the idea of going back in person, I did appreciate that decision because that was one that directly impacted my son. I drastically saw a huge increase in his ability to actually take in the information that he needed to, and saw drastic improvements in his reading, writing, math, everything really. And while that was a scary decision to make and a difficult one, it was one that ultimately, did provide our children the space that they needed to be able to grow. Obviously, there were, some scary aspects of it, knowing that, we are taking a huge risk with that and not everybody was comfortable with that. But I do want to commend them for taking that decision on. And I think an area where I would love to see more improvement is mental health support. The pandemic has exhausted our children more than anything, and they need that additional support to be able to continue growing outside. Sorry, I see the timer's
Time's up. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, we're sticklers. The next question for our candidate
I know,
is is Albany schools, climate change is one of the most pressing issues facing our world, and transportation accounts for approximately half of Albany's greenhouse gas emissions. As a school board member, what measures related to transportation otherwise can our schools take to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and stem the tide of climate change?
Definitely. And I think this is somewhere we would definitely need to work with city council on this. I think the ideas of providing bus passes or some sort of increasing access to bus availability. I know that's not something that can work for all of the grade levels. However, that is a great step towards making sure that we're taking more environmentally sustainable routes to getting to and from school. Beyond that, I think there's other great ways like, more greenery on our campuses, whether it's just kind of making sure that we are conscious of those issues. I know we do a wonderful job of promoting walking to school. A lot of our campuses do, at least twice a year, just kind of events that promote walking to school. And I think that's a great conversation to have with our children and making sure that we are educating them on how this impacts, them and our environment. And beyond that, pushing a lot of the, reuse, reduce, recycle in forms outside of just, I'll stop there. These timers are going a lot faster than anticipated, but yeah.
Yeah, it's not that critical, I guess, right now.
Thank you so much. We're going to now move on to audience question and answer. We have 2 questions from the audience so far, so please, audience members, feel free to direct message me your questions. We're eager to pose them to our candidate. The first question is related to our last. Climate change is one of the most pressing issues facing our world. Oh, excuse me. I believe I've got a duplicate here. Forgive me. I'm going to move on to our second audience question. Our school students are representative of the future and are inheriting a world strongly impacted by climate change. What can the school board do to empower our students to meet this challenge? And please, if you would, because we cut you off in the last question, simply elaborate on your response, if you don't mind.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think part of, an initiative I took on during my son's preschool was working with UC Berkeley's environmental sustainability group to, I brought in a grant that allowed us to work with educators that work directly with, around climate change issues, and brought them in to teach our preschoolers about environmental issues and how, those impact our community. And then also use that as a form to teach them about art and how to recreate using, materials that we might find otherwise, as useless or trash, And so in that sense, there are many ways that we can, continue to bring in more sustainable, just practices in our day-to-day lives, especially within the school system, whether it's through education, whether it's through direct action, like, working on bus pass availabilities, or just more, walking to school initiatives. I think a lot of this work is something that would have to be done directly with the city council, because that's where a lot of these decisions are made, and not as much, on the school board.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sadia. Our next question for you is, the Albany School Board and City Council are two independent entities, but respective decision-making impacts our youth. If elected, how do you see yourself interfacing with the City Council?
I honestly welcome the idea of being able to work directly with City Council. As I mentioned earlier, food security, housing security, all of these issues are ones that are interlocked and impact our students' abilities to actually show up and be present in school, and to be able to actively learn and grow. And so, being able to work with City Council on issues, around whether it's more housing development, so that we can, retain a lot of our UC Village residents who are, AUSD students. That is like one of the best ways to make sure that, our enrollment rates stay on par with, this, and are not randomly drop. Like right now, we're going through a huge drop, and part of that issue is that folks don't have available housing. So these are just, interconnected issues that we would definitely need to work with our City Council to make sure that our students have, a better chance and a holistic chance at being able to participate and, learn in our schools.
Thank you, Sadia.
Thank you.
Our next question for you is, what work do you think is important for the district to do to close, or at least decrease the gaps in achievement?
Absolutely. I think part of that starts with actually working directly with our students, realizing where the issues are coming in for them. But also part of this is making sure that we're providing mental health services and support, and actually getting a chance to make sure that our students are able to sit in with counselors and talk about everything that's going on for them, and then create proactive plans with our children on what they actually need support with. Achievement gaps are not always purely academic facing. There are oftentimes issues beyond just school that impact children's abilities to be able to, participate in school. I will say I was one of those children that went from being a straight A honor student to drastically seeing a drop in my education because of my father's health, and that, there was nobody there to guide me. There was nobody there to push me. And those are issues that, are beyond just what happens at school, and having somebody that you can talk to and get guidance directly from really makes a huge difference.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sadia. Please, audience, please continue to send us questions. In the meantime, I'm going to ask the last remaining question we have on the docket, unless more come in, and that is, what are your 3 biggest priority issues?
For me, some of the biggest issue areas are making sure that we're able to build long-term and structural support to, support our teachers, children, and parents, making sure we're able to fill those equity gaps that folks are very, very much concerned about, and rightfully so. And also making sure that I can bring more UC Village and Ocean View voices to the school board. I'm extremely passionate about making sure that UC Village voices are heard, because that is one of our most diverse, parenting and student population at AUSD. We're talking, single parent households, we're talking non-traditional families, we're talking, so many different barriers, and that are, UC Village and many of our Ocean View families are facing. And so just making sure we're able to bring those voices on, and making sure that we, retain relationships with folks beyond just the campaign period. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, audience, for sending additional questions. I'm afraid, Sadia, you're not off the hook just yet.
No worries.
The next question we have for you is related to one that we asked earlier, but different. The pandemic has been difficult for our community, creating divisions between parents and teachers in some cases. How would you work as a board member to help heal the community?
That is definitely a difficult question to answer, because I think that, one starts with actually listening to parents and teachers separately and making sure that they are able to share their voices and concerns in a way where, they're comfortable and able to share that with us. So maybe starting with hosting town halls and just figuring out what were the issues that were coming up and how we can heal and move forward, and what, folks need for that to be, healing for them. And then being able to bring, everybody together and say, hey, this is what we heard on both sides. This is, this isn't a matter of right or wrong, but this is more so a matter of folks saw a different solution to the same problem. And I think at the end of the day, what matters most is that we are concerned most about our children and making sure that they have the access that they need. And so it's just making sure that there is space for everybody to speak on that, and then know that we can work together, and this isn't just something that, the pandemic's not going to limit us in that way, and that I'm going to stop with the timer. So
And thank you.
Thanks very much. We're again down to our last question, and that is, what is your view of the school board's role in setting broad direction and oversight for the administration versus tactical management?
Absolutely. I think the board definitely has a better ability to work on the first rather than the latter. I think part of, the management side is knowing that we have obviously hired and supported folks that know how to do their job, and it's not our job to micromanage or tell them how to do their jobs. Our job is to guide them, provide policy, provide support, look into issue areas that are impacting, and ask to work together and look into that and figure out why are we seeing those issues and how can we come up with solutions to better support that. So I think that's kind of where we're at with that. Obviously, if support is needed, more than happy to, push for more support on that kind of macro level. But I think the priority in this is to trust the folks that we are bringing into these positions to be able to do their job without needing to micromanage every single thing that they do.
Yeah, thank you, Sadia. We have had additional questions come in. We're gonna keep abusing your kindness by posing them to you.
No worries.
The first is, what is your solution to bringing the city and school district closer together?
I think one of the biggest ways to do this is we need more community events. We need to be able to actually physically get together and say, these are the folks that represent you, or these are the folks that, are here to better our community, and begin with hosting those events. Like, I think one of the most, fun things that everybody, and myself included, looks forward to is the Fall Festival at Ocean View. And that, that was something that I looked forward to long before I became an Ocean View parent. It's stuff like that that brings our community together. And it begins with making sure that we are not getting together only when there's a crisis, but also when there are things for us to celebrate about this community that we are part of, and celebrating our city. So, step one is just creating those spaces for all of us to engage with ourselves, with each other. And then, beyond that, it's also making sure that we're making our, meetings more accessible, whether it's in person, Zoom, whatever options might be needed. There's gradual steps that need to be taken to make sure that we can build on that.
Thank you, Sadia. Our next question pertains to the Albany Aquatic Complex. Our audience member says, the complex was funded by a ballot measure, and it is tasked or commissioned as a community pool, but the school district manages it as a school facility, not necessarily as a joint pool with the community. Will you help to make the Albany Aquatic Complex truly a community facility for all?
I will have to be completely honest and say that I this is new information for me. I would definitely have to look into it more and figure out, what the ballot measure said and what is in place right now. But I would definitely love to work with the right people to make sure that this is something that, we can look into and find actual solutions to. I definitely see the value in having more spaces that are accessible to all, beyond just school spaces. It's, having recreational spaces for our children to use during the off hours from school that make things like it brings our community together, and that's what we need more of. So it's definitely something that I, am very new to. Thank you for bringing it to my attention, and I will definitely look into this more.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
No, I was thinking the same thing.
Oh, great. We're all very thankful. The next question I have from our audience is, what steps would you take to strengthen the school district's financial health?
Definitely. I think that's something definitely I'll learn more about if elected. I think one of those things starts with actually, being able to review the budget, past budgets, and what that looks like. And then, beyond that, I know part of this does definitely have to do with our enrollment numbers. Obviously, with more children that are enrolled in our district, the more funding that we receive from the state. But beyond that, I have been a huge supporter of funding our school systems, especially at the statewide level. That was something I advocated for last year, and I'm, that's a fight that I'm willing to go to Sacramento for. This isn't just a matter of, only working with what's within the city, but also making sure that we are reaching out to those sources beyond just our city limits, whether it's in the form of, filing for grants as a school board, whether it's, actually going to Sacramento and advocating. Those are definitely avenues that I would love to explore, if elected.
Thank you very much. That exhausts the questions we have from the audience. And looking at the clock, I think it's a good time to move on to a closing statement whenever you're ready.
Absolutely.
Oh, and before you begin, I'll remind you that we have 1 minute for closing statements.
It's that darn timer.
Yeah.
I would just humbly ask that the Albany community vote for me for the Albany School Board. I've spent, like I said, 7 years working on education policy. And beyond that, I've also spent over 4 years working inside classrooms as a teacher's assistant, whether it was creating curriculum or actually lecturing, tutoring students. Education has a very personal place in my heart because it was something that I almost did not have access to, and I know what it means to fight hard for it. And beyond that, I know what it means to try and make that accessible and actually listen to the voices that get forgotten and lost because they no longer fit the model that you want to look at. As I shared, like I was one of those students that suddenly, dipped down and didn't have anyone that could pull me up. I had to, fight hard to pull myself up, get myself to UC Berkeley, beyond multiple barriers. And so, I understand that struggle, and I want to make sure that all of our voices are heard and we have the opportunity to support everyone. Sorry for going over
Thank you
time.
very much. I'm being bad at those grains in the sticking down for you. Sorry.
Well, Sadia, we really appreciate you for being such a good sport and for, peppering all of those questions. Most candidates get a moment to think about their response. You had to answer them off the cuff, and we're very grateful. For our audience and for our group here today, that concludes our 2 forums. You heard from the Albany City Council candidates and from school board candidates. We're going to now stop the recording. We're going to